Hello, and welcome to STEAM of Consciousness, a program presented by the ARI Podcasting Network and hosted by George Koperna. What is STEAM? STEAM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Mathematics. During each episode, we will take a few minutes to sit down with professionals in different STEAM-related fields to give them an opportunity to share their story and give their perspectives with the goal of promoting career awareness to potentially interested students, young professionals, and of course, anyone else who shares a fascination with these areas of study. And now, please join us as we tap into the STEAM of Consciousness.
Welcome to STEAM of Consciousness. Today, we're happy to have Zoe Koperna back. Zoe, welcome.
Thanks for having me again.
Happy to be here. Happy to be sitting with you. And what we thought we'd do is when we last talked to Zoe, we talked a lot about where she was at Virginia Tech.
Yes.
What she had gone through in her transformation from being excited about theater, being excited about STEAM, and moving into college and changing majors and all of that. So, we won't rehash a lot of that. There's a whole separate podcast for that. But today, what I'd like to focus on is matriculation. Zoe was one semester from graduating at Virginia Tech. She was undergoing all the preparations to graduate on time, to look for a job, and all the stresses that come with that. And so tell me, that last semester at Virginia Tech, how was it?
It went by a lot faster than I thought. I did not believe my upperclassmen friends when they would say, hold on to it, college goes by quick. But in the grand scheme of finalizing our super big projects and taking my last couple of classes and looking for jobs, it was all somehow very overwhelming, but fast at the same time.
And so there was a lot of moving parts,
Yes.
right? It's almost that last little piece of adulting, pre-adulting, if you will,
Yes.
to get ready to move on. But let's talk about your last semester first. And when you were there, like, what kind of coursework was in your last semester? Was there anything special, or was it just classes as normal?
So, as the previous episode with me mentions, I was a transfer student at Virginia Tech studying engineering. And because I was a transfer student, my last year, so 7th and 8th semester, I was taking a lot of classes compared to my acquaintances and other peers. So I was still taking a 16 credit hour load, which for those who don't know, 12 credit hours is usually the standard. So I was taking a little bit more classes than other people in my degree path, but I was focusing on higher level classes as well, transport phenomena, capstone research projects, lots of material things to keep it brief. So it was really cool to be able to apply my previous knowledge from my prerequisite classes into these final couple of courses. And the special class I got to do, 3 of those credits were finishing up my big senior design project with my capstone team.
So tell me a little bit more about that. You had a team, you worked in an integrated team with your peers. Tell us a little bit about the process and the project.
Yeah, so specifically with material science and engineering at Virginia Tech, your second semester junior year, you are placed into a team based on your personal interests. You do not get to pick the people you work with, but rather you get to hopefully get the subject matter that you're interested in. And so for the last 3 semesters of school, we were working on this project with sustainable cement, and that was with the civil engineering department at Virginia Tech as well. And I worked with 3 other of my classmates throughout these 3 semesters doing lab work and communication preparation and presentation and engineering. So it was a very heavily integrated experience, which is why they have you do a big senior capstone project to really start getting that idea of what you might be doing in the real world.
And so that project, what were the components? Was there laboratory research? How did you present? Was there reports, papers? Go ahead.
Lots of all of that. You really hit the mark with that. So part of the credit load is associated with lab work and with a recitation period as well. So we were going to the lab nearly every day to work on our project. There's also presentation requirements, including proposals, understanding how to keep everybody in the loop, your advisors, your professors, those who are funding your project. We did a big poster seminar presentation, and we presented multiple times, just general presentations throughout those 3 semesters.
Now, um, previous summer you had worked for NASA doing some research for them.
Yes.
How was the research different for your capstone project than it was for your summer internship with NASA?
The biggest thing is the topic. I was still working with ceramic materials in both of those projects, but I was working primarily with ceramic materials that were more thermal based and functioning. And then for my senior design project, I was working with a ceramic material that's used for structural properties and for sustainability. And so this project, because it was longer, it felt more hands-on. It didn't go by as quick as my NASA project. Another big difference is that I was working with laboratory personnel directly with NASA. I was essentially independent in this project with the assistance of those who knew how to run the lab, the machinery, and they would teach me, and I kind of had to forge my own path.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I was learning with 3 other students at the same time, which it's always good to have that sense of community as well. And I was still learning with other personnel and everything and professors, but it was more of a broader experience with the other students I was working with. And then we would put our heads together and be like, now that we know these things from our professors, we're able to really find out what the next steps need to be for certain parts of our project.
So you learned to tie the shoelace that they gave you.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
But even though, at first blush, working for NASA in the summer, then doing a R&D project at the university on cements, you wouldn't think there was any parallels, but it seems like there was a lot.
Oh, there were a lot. I mean, any sort of work experience that I had before, whether or not it was my internship or group projects in classes or independent projects in classes, really taught me how I work in a group, how I work independently, things I enjoy and things I don't quite enjoy as much. So being able to you can really draw parallels from any of those sort of ideas.
And I know it's early in your career, but what did let's start with the likes. Let's start with the easy stuff. What did you like best about it?
I love working with other people. I'm a really big people person, and I love bouncing my ideas off of people and making sure that I understand where I'm going with certain steps of the project. So that kind of group reassurance and that group problem solving mentality is something I really enjoy. I also really love the communication aspects of it. I love presenting. I love understanding how my audience, whether or not they're technical in background or not, I love understanding how I need to communicate with them efficiently so that they understand the purpose of what we're doing.
That's the theater coming out in you.
Yes, very much so.
And that's incredibly neat. So now the harder one. What did you not enjoy about it as much?
I would say I would rather rephrase it as what was I learning how to do a little bit better. Independent work can be hard. Being able to step your own foot forward and take your own risks without having that reassurance can be really tricky. However, I learned to overcome a lot of that. I think, yeah, that has to be my more self-improvement topic with that.
And there's not anybody else to bounce ideas off of.
No.
There's you a lot of professor time, I'm guessing.
Yes. So if I had questions and people in my group couldn't answer, I would end up communicating with who I needed to, respectively. But it's also, on the flip side, taught me how to take charge, taught me where I work the best independently. So I would draft a lot of our reports or presentations or posters. And then that kind of led me be like, hey guys, I took the independent lead on this, but let me hear your feedback because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
That's fantastic because so often, I know when I was in college, having somebody kind of put up the guardrails to keep you in the lane is really important. And so even in a team concept, and was there a lot of give and take with your team? Were you taking in information as well as giving it?
Yes, I loved the team I worked with. I was very lucky to have a great team who were all very knowledgeable and worked really hard. And we all had decided from the get go that we are all learning a very new topic and that we would look at literature reviews and kind of consolidate what we had learned and then apply it to our team in meetings, especially in the lab too. Some of us were able to join in on learning new machinery to test and characterize our cement. And some days people couldn't join. So we would have to teach them as well to catch them up, or they would have to teach me to catch me up.
And so I was pleasantly surprised when I came down for graduation. There was also a competitive aspect to this.
Yes.
Care to talk a little bit about that?
Of course. So with Virginia Tech Engineering, they have the opportunity for each discipline to have a project move on to be best project or best poster. So that kind of had a lot of drive for some of the teams. They were really ambitious and they wanted to take on a lot. My team agreed at the beginning that we didn't necessarily care if we won an award or if we moved on to present for the final consideration of best projects. We just knew that we want to put our best foot forward, have our own set of goals, learn a lot, and be able to look back on this project and say that we did all those things. Unfortunately, we didn't place or win anything, but it was really cool seeing the other teams. There were 16 design teams in total, so it was really cool seeing their work. And I'm super proud of everyone in my major because everyone did a fantastic job.
Of course.
Yes.
And so, you know, that's a really neat little bonus. I know that part of the prize was not only recognition in front of your peers, but there were cash considerations. Not
Yes.
extensive amounts of cash, but a little bit
Yeah.
when you're a student, that's a lot.
Yes. And the best project winners are going on to present at different technology conferences up against other schools in materials programs. So, Stanford, Purdue, Michigan. We usually place pretty high at Virginia Tech. So, I'm crossing my fingers for them. I think that's later this year.
Well, that's fantastic. So, you know, on top of all of this, you're in your last semester, you have senior design, you have your capstone project that we just talked about. You're trying to get everything done so you can walk for graduation. You're also looking for jobs. How
Yes.
stressful was that?
It was pretty stressful. It took a lot of time and consideration for me to narrow down what I wanted in a job. But I also knew that I had to be open to trying new things and that I'm not going to get the perfect job just walking through the door or what I thought was the perfect
Mm.
job. I'm new to the workforce. I don't know what I need yet or what I want yet.
And that's fair. I think you hit on a theme that I've heard a lot, and that is be open to new experiences.
Yes. Yes.
Um, yes, to put it in theater speak. Um, and so, what kind of preparations you have? Did you continually mold your resume? Did you have interviews? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. For our listeners, your resume is a living document. I was constantly changing, updating, making it perfect in those instances, going back and improving things, updating things. So that was a really big thing. And I also would talk with my communications professor about interview tips, skills, tricks. I take a lot of pride in my interviewing skills. I'd like to think I talk very well. A lot of interviewees have a lot of trouble talking about themselves. They get hit with the so tell me about yourself question and kind of freeze and they're not really hitting the right points. So I made sure I had that solidified with my professor who's very experienced in teaching students those things.
It is a little bit difficult for certain individuals to talk about themselves, and it is a valuable skill to learn. It's not necessarily grandstanding or tooting your own horn, so to speak, to
Yeah.
be able to talk about yourself, but to talk about what you've done in your 4 years in college, what you've done for your senior design project, the challenges and the things that you've liked and disliked, like much like you're doing now, I think is a skill.
Oh, for sure. And I really touch base on the material types I was working with. So I kind of start with my name is Zoe Koperna. I'm majoring in material science and engineering with a minor in green engineering. I have spent the majority of my time with MSc at Virginia Tech studying ceramic materials and different applications across the biomedical, aerospace, and civil fields. I enjoy working collaboratively with people and I enjoy hands on learning. So I kind of that's a very informal example, but those are some of the things I do touch on with those interviews.
And how many, and let's expand it to your final year,
Hmm.
because I know some of the career stuff starts early on in
Yes.
your senior year.
Yes.
About how many interviews did you have? How many formal or informal?
Yeah.
Because I know that there's also the informal interviews when you're at a career fair and you talk to George Koperna, who has a booth, and you say, "Hey, what do you guys do? How do I fit in?"
Exactly.
How many did you have?
So Virginia Tech, every September, they have an engineering expo. I believe it is the second largest in the
Hmm.
country, just behind Texas A&M. And I was doing my elevator pitch to nearly every company there, and there were I want to say like 50 over, I don't know, around there. It spanned over 3 days. You kind of have the opportunity to visit with companies that are only there certain days. And so I was giving elevator pitches to everybody. And then the last day that companies are there, they usually use it to interview students on campus because they're right there. So I got a couple of those, and then sort of moving along as I was applying for those jobs at Expo that did not offer me an interview, then I would get I got, I think, one or two more interviews after the expo period. Now, applying outside of expo, I was applying for jobs on LinkedIn, Indeed, a lot of those online sites. I got about 3 or 4 job interviews from those sites.
So, in your estimation, is it fair to say that the value proposition is don't miss the career fair or the
Yeah.
career expo?
Yes, it can be really hard to put yourself out there, especially in terms of a career or an internship. But just being able to say you even went and looked around at companies is one step closer than you would be if you didn't go.
And I think that's great advice. And it's hard the first time,
Yes.
but by the third or fourth table, it's going to be easier.
It's easy, breezy, beautiful. By the third or fourth table, they all just want to hear a little bit about you. They're not judging you. They're not trying to scrutinize you. An interview is just a conversation, really, just trying to get to know the other person. And remember, as an interviewee, or even just when you're talking, giving your elevator pitch to companies, they also know that you're trying to decide if you like them as a company. So they're also going to try to impress you to some extent.
And interviews work both ways.
Yes. Yes.
You're allowed to interview me when
Yeah.
you're talking to me. All of that was great.
Thank you.
You did a bunch of interviews. We didn't have an answer before graduation, did we?
No, I did not have an answer before graduation. So I did graduate at that moment, technically unemployed for that foreseeable future on May 17th.
I was very sad. I'm kidding.
He's kidding.
But you had some leads.
I did. I was actually a couple of days before graduation doing my first round of interviews for the company I work for now.
and and we'll get to that in a minute, but I think this is a really important thing to say is a lot of folks graduate and there's still some uncertainty in their career path.
Oh, definitely. I know plenty of people who are just now getting interviews for jobs that were in my same degree path, and they are very scared, and rightfully so. It's a very anxiety inducing thing.
But it's not the end of the
No,
world.
it is not
And
the end of the world.
and
Network.
and we talked a little bit, the interviewing is a two-way street. Sometimes things just aren't lining up each way.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that when you're putting yourself out there to talk to people, that you try to do it as often as you can to as many folks as you can, because you never know where that hook is going to catch.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Wayne Gretzky. But it's very true. That mentality is important, that if you don't try, that's worse than hearing a no.
Yeah. And so take chances, put yourself out there.
Always, always.
And so you touched a little bit on the more conventional sites, the web services
Yeah.
that are out there, recruiting programs. LinkedIn is a famous one. There's others.
Yeah.
But it seemed like there was less success with that because I think
Yeah.
they're out there, they're overwhelmed by responses.
Yes. At that time, I felt very, very pessimistic about using those online resources. I almost got to the point which I very much still recommend, even as a first attempt. Cold call recruiters. They will have in LinkedIn online the hiring manager, the talent manager, talent acquisition, etc. person that is hiring for those jobs. And it never hurts to either email or just call them during the workday and say, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm calling for this position. This is why I think I'd be a good fit. I would love to further this discussion in a meeting. That can be really daunting, but sometimes it works really well because then it shows that you're taking that initiative and that you're really interested.
And what did you do after every interview?
Follow up. You follow up with the people you were interviewing with. Maybe CC the person who you were doing the talent acquisition with, because sometimes they're not in the interview with you. And just thank them for a lovely interview. Talk about the things you learned about the company and talk about what you're interested in.
It seems old-fashioned.
Do it.
When you get a gift at Christmas, you write maybe your parents had you write a thank you note to your great aunt who gave you a gift.
Yes.
Interviewing can be the same way. Thank them for the opportunity. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, especially because it leaves those recruiters and those people that you're interviewing with, it leaves them with not only a very positive image of you, but an image of you. A lot of those interviews, sometimes just whoosh, just in one ear out the other with people. Sometimes they're interviewing a lot of people at once and it's really hard to remember. And they'll be like, oh, well, this candidate sent such a lovely follow up email after the interview thanking us for their time. That was really sweet of them. And it kind of helps you stick out a little bit more.
And I think the career advice that you don't hear when you're in school is every job is about communicating.
Every single one.
And that's showing that you're willing to reach back out and communicate, even if it's just a very simple thank you note.
Yep. Agreed.
And so you graduated.
I graduated.
You were unemployed, as we've established.
Yes.
Your mom and dad were very concerned for your well-being.
So concerned.
But you had some leads. And so tell us a little bit about that process of looking for a job post-graduation.
Yes. So I was still unemployed, as my father proudly says. It doesn't stop that. I feel like I kept a lot of that energy and that mentality from being in school with my transition back home in order to help push myself. Sometimes it can be easy to fall into a rut and be very cynical about your job outlook, but it's really important that even just once a day, at least apply to one job a day. Even if you feel like you're not going to get it, it's still that same mentality. The worst thing you can do is not try.
Yeah, and I think you were very good at sticking to your plan, and
Thank
to
you.
your credit. Um, that doesn't mean that that's what everyone else is going to. Maybe it's once a week you send out 10 or 12 letters,
Mhm.
whatever the case may be, and you can pull that back to your senior year
Yes.
if depending on your schedule and your course load, because if you're in the engineering or some of the other hard sciences, you may have a final semester that's very daunting.
Yes.
And so how you balance that is a challenge. Now, you balance that with a lot of personal activities and volunteer activities. Um, you also had an honor society or an engineering fraternity.
Yes.
Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
That you were able to bounce off. I mean, how helpful was that through that process?
Being able to have my extracurriculars not only be social for me, but also be a resource for me was super important. They were all co-curricular, or if they were social, there were still people that were in engineering, whether or not it was materials or electrical or mechanical. So it was really awesome to have those people in my corner, but also seeing them struggle as well. Sometimes it kind of gives you that comfort when you know you're not alone and looking for a job. So that was something. I'll be like, oh, did you guys get a job? No, did you guys? I got an interview. Yay. And you kind of celebrate those small wins with your people, with your group, because it's another just push of reassurance.
You got to run with your herd.
Yes.
So you're leveraging them, you're hearing their successes,
Mhm.
and they're sharing their trials and tribulations. And you had your own.
Yes.
As you move through this and you've graduated now, you're looking for that job. Did you reach back to Virginia Tech or your peer group at all, or was it just on your own?
I mostly just caught up with people. I didn't necessarily reach back out in sense of jobs, but in general.
Mm.
And those connections they're important to me, not only because they're my friends, but it's always important to keep people that you studied with kind of by your side, especially because they might have connections elsewhere. They might be able to help you in some way, shape, or form with networking, or they'll just be another person that understands it too.
And the reason I ask is we'll come back to this in a minute, with you helping someone in your peer group join your firm.
Yes.
So to bury the lead just a little bit, but talk a little bit about the process. You had an interview with your firm.
Yes.
How many interviews did you have?
So I had one online Zoom interview, or correction, I first did a call with the talent hiring manager, and he let me know that we're going to move you on to for a first round interview. And I was lucky enough, they accommodated for me, put me on Zoom since I was still in Blacksburg at that time. And then I went in and did a site tour and had sort of a informal conversation interview, just kind of testing the waters with the engineering managers there. So 3 in total.
Mm-hmm. And so with the first one being kind of that initial screening
Yes.
level where is she really going to graduate? Is she really an engineer? Is she have a pulse? Right?
Yes, they asked me questions in that phone screening that they wanted to just understand and know if engineering and problem solving were things I was interested in. They want to make sure I was a good fit just initially before getting into the nitty-gritty of the actual interview.
And so go ahead and tell us, where'd you land?
So I am currently a process engineer at S.T.E.A.M Technologies.
And how long have you been there?
I have been there for just over 2 months.
So it's still early days.
Yes.
But are you learning a lot?
I am learning so much, and I love the people I work with. Another great engineering community to add to my back pocket for sure.
And I think the initial, I'm hired, I've got a new job. How did that feel?
I was ecstatic. I was very worried. As I mentioned before, I was pretty pessimistic, but being able to get that phone call that they wanted to hire me, that they thought I would do really well with this problem solving as that comes with a process engineer in manufacturing, I was elated.
It feels good to be wanted, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It feels good to be hired.
And so I think what we'd like to do is, ultimately come back to this maybe another 6 months down the road.
Yeah, awesome.
And talk a little bit more about your job, the things you can say. And so we talked a little bit about your peer network and you bringing people on. And so how were you able to help one of your peers?
I was able to refer him for an opening that we had as another process engineer. He studied mechanical engineering also at Virginia Tech. And when I got hired a couple days after, they did ask me, and since I was a recent graduate, they asked me if I had any peers, friends, etc., that were looking for jobs. And I was like, I think I have the person for you. So I was able to refer him. And when you refer somebody at my company, you guarantee them a phone interview at least. So they will see your resume. They for sure will call you for that screening. And so he was able to kind of move on with that process.
And this is not an unusual thing. If a company hires somebody that they believe they like, and I'm going to assume that they like you since you're still there, they'll often, if there's other openings, look to you to kind of refer somebody. And the referral process is really important because you, by your nature, are going to want to refer somebody who's not going to make you look bad.
Yes.
So, as your peer started?
Yes, he just started a week ago, so he's on his 2nd week now.
Fantastic. We're coming up to time here, and this has been really great. Thank you for allowing me to do this with you again.
Thanks for letting me come back.
And I think this is really important to look in, and I think you've sprinkled some very good nuggets. Put yourself out there.
Communication is still key everywhere you go.
Communicate.
Try new things.
The little touches separate. A thank you note after an interview goes a long way.
A very long way.
And don't give up.
Don't give up ever.
What'd we miss?
Virginia Tech is the best.
That was directed to me.
Yes.
This has been a presentation of the ARI Podcasting Network. Thank you for tuning in today to Stream of Consciousness. I'd like to also thank Zoe Koperna.
Thank you for having me.
For coming in, being our guest today, and kind of, showing us a little bit about what her last semester and her job search was like. And I'd also like to thank Ryan Kessler, who's produced this podcast. Thank you very much. We'll see you later.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to listen to new episodes of Stream of Consciousness, available on your preferred podcast listening station.